Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with two very special guests. Our first guest today is Dr. Ginny Whitelaw, and she's here to share with us her new book, Resonate, Zen and the Way of Making a Difference. So in today's world, how do you know you're really making an impact? In this discussion with Dr. Ginny Whitelaw, we'll cover how to master the principle underlying change so you can live your most significant, joyful, and resilient life. Now, Dr. Whitelaw is the founder and CEO of the Institute for Zen Leadership and a Zen Master, as well as the president of Focus Leadership. She's a recognized expert in leadership development and executive coaching and has authored 4 books. A biophysicist by training, she combines a rich scientific background with senior leadership experience at NASA and more than 25 years developing global leaders. So let's welcome to the show, Dr. Ginny Whitelaw.
Thank you. Good to be here.
What an honor it is to have you here. And I have to ask you, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, it's really coming right out of the times themselves. I was at a session where we teach Zen leadership, where we bring the groundedness of physical Zen training together with leadership skills. And one of my colleagues was giving a talk about climate change, and he was talking about why it's so hard for us to change our habits around this, even his own habits. And I'm sitting there listening as he says, we have to change how change happens. And it just hit me because I'm a scientist by training, and I thought, the physicist in me is going, well, change always happens through resonance. And then the Zen teacher in me said, and we change resonance. We change how the human body resonates with the conditions it faces. So, wow, there's really an important piece of work here to put these two things together. How can we change through these kinds of practices to change some of the wicked issues in our world? And that's what launched me into writing this book.
Oh my goodness, I am so glad you wrote this book. I loved it. I thought it was a fabulous read. And, and for people who are a little new to what it means to resonate, I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Sure. To resonate is to vibrate with. And that might seem like, well, vibrations, we all know that is how sound works, for example. We can actually see vibrations sometimes with sound, but truly everything works that way. Energy is always in waves, just like waves on water. And when waves come together, just like on water, they're going to interact. They're going to do something. And when they're roughly in the same wavelength with one another, they're going to add up or interfere or cancel out. Something is going to happen. Well, the same thing happens with the human being. You and I are in constant vibrations too. And some of those vibrations we're aware of. We're aware of our vibration of breathing, for example. We're aware of our heartbeat, which is a vibration. We're aware that when we walk, it's at a certain cadence, or even my speech right now is a certain vibration, both in the pacing of the words, but in the frequencies of sound itself. These are all vibrations. And when waves come together and each can use what the other offers, there's an interaction. They add up. They do something. It's not a belief system or an option. It's a fact. That's what happens. That's how energy changes form. And when we start working with resonance, we co-create with that. We are able to work with that in a way where our voice can be heard. Our dreams can come true. Our actions on teams can add up in ways that we can make things happen. We can make our difference.
Oh, I just love that. And and especially coming from you, for those people who are going, well, I don't know, could sound a little bit like that gets into stuff that could be considered woo-woo, which it's not. It's like plain science because, you're basically like a rocket science with a black belt and, a Zen master all combined in one,
Well, science was my first love. That is for sure. I wanted to be an astronaut as a kid, and it really took me into science and math and physics. I got so interested in energy and the cusp of energy and matter. I worked in a high energy physics lab for several years in college. And then I got interested in energy in the human being and studied biophysics as a graduate student and energy in the nervous system. What really cemented it from a different direction, though, was you mentioned the black belt. I started studying martial arts and Aikido, which literally translates as the way of harmonizing energy. I started to see, wow, this isn't just a study. This is something we can cultivate. This comes through the human being. And the Zen training really is about how you can use the physical body to resonate with universal energy, with the energy available to you right now. So you're right. In one way, it can sound a little woo-woo. On another way, it's just wondrous to see and feel into the bigness of what you and I are experiencing right now. Because a little bit of it, like a tip of an iceberg, we can consciously sense, just like in the whole electromagnetic spectrum. We see a couple little bands that we call visible light, or a couple little areas of sound frequencies we can hear. And yet that entire band can be stimulating us in ways that we're not fully conscious of. And we certainly experience lots of kinds of energy that we only vaguely intuit. For example, the feeling of a conversation, the vibe of a relationship, the climate of a team, the culture of where you work, the feeling of this city that's different from that city. These are all qualities of energy that you and I can sense. And we often work with in leadership for sure, because leaders are often in the business, I'd say always in the business, of turning energy, like the energy of ideas, into things that matter. So being sensitive to energy and working with it is a core skill.
Oh my goodness. And you really break it down, which excites me so much from like the scientific level. I'm like, ooh, finally, we've got a book that talks about this, because while there are lots of books that kind of bridge some parts of science, I felt that you really, kind of dovetailed them both so nicely together. So it's got common language that people can understand.
Yes, thank you for that, Marianne. I feel like at some level it's so simple. It's so simple, but we miss it. And part of what my goal is with Resonate is to make it clear and accessible to people, that it opens doors, that they can feel you are the instrument, the literal musical instrument through which the energy of life is playing out into the difference you make. And how you treat and tune and tame and integrate that instrument will result in it being able to sense different kinds of energy, enact different kinds of actions. And that's where we have a choice about resonance, and it's an important choice.
So how does this affect our mind-body together?
It's a great question, because resonance is what links mind and body. Because think about it. On the one hand, the mind is using the body to create itself. For example, you and I are looking around our room, we're hearing sounds, we smell smells, and through these senses, the mind is having an experience, a subjective experience we call perception. This is every day. This is every moment. And yet the mind is also, I love Dan Siegel's beautiful definition of mind, an embodied relational process that directs the flow of energy. So the mind, in turn, by paying attention to the body in different ways, can change what's going on in the body. So, for example, if I slow down my breathing, and I'm using my mind to slow down my breathing in my physical body, it's going to change the vibration in my physical body. My heartbeat is going to slow down. Muscles are going to start to relax. I'm going to have a subjective experience of being more grounded. And objectively, if someone was watching me, they'd see I look more grounded. Or if they had a little measurement of the magnetic field around me, they whipped out their little magnetometer, they would see that my field changes as my heart and brain come into synchrony, this is all wonderful research from the Heart Math Institute, and there's a certain frequency at which that coherence is possible. So both objectively and subjectively, both body and mind are changed through the same gestures, through the same events.
Wow, that's so impressive. I know a lot of people are going to see if they can order that meter right now. Where am I at on the scale? You know,
That's right.
But all kidding aside, it's amazing how it seems that it's so simple. I think that's a lot of times why people kind of just brush it off. It's like, oh, that can't possibly be how this all connects. And is this something that also can help us heal from like trauma and maybe patterns and habits we have?
Oh, very much so. Because the mind, in directing energy, can also go to those stuck places in the body where we're holding trauma. Because the body remembers our life experience. That's just, again, things that have been well researched for decades now, where stored trauma in the body can result in tension patterns or stuck points in the connective tissue where energy doesn't flow. And those often become the sites of pain and difficulty and things that get worked out through various therapeutic interventions, such as body work or somatic experiencing or trauma and tension release exercises. Again, the body of knowledge around this has grown dramatically in the last decades. So when the mind and body, in a sense, disagree about reality. In other words, Dan Siegel describes this beautifully in his work, where if I dissociate from an experience, it's so traumatic, I just can't handle it. It's like blown my circuits. Then the mind puts it out of mind. It kind of goes away to its happy place, but the body remembers. And now the two are in a little different reality. That disintegration creates a breach or a break in our resonance, in our ability to be whole. And we can heal those breaks by reintegrating the head, the heart, what I call hara, not just I call, the Japanese call hara, which is the lower abdomen, but those key lower chakras that are core to storing a lot of, especially early life trauma, because that's what was developing in our early life. That's the part of us that was really maturing then. And when we reintegrate that, we get the head and the body, with the brain and the body more aligned on a single reality. So the mind can do work to help the body release tension, and then the body in turn resonates more purely, its clear note for our subjective experience of mind.
Sounds like that all integrates perfectly together. And that's what people want, is to get to a place where all that trauma and discord eventually smooths out.
Well, it's right. The trauma in some ways is a great teacher. The difficulties in life can be a great teacher, but we want to somehow resolve it, as you said, to not let it just undo us or have us live in shards, and in small pieces. It's healing those divides. And I'll tell you, to go back to where our conversation started, healing those divides in ourself becomes exactly the laboratory where we also see how to heal the relationships of our life, where we heal the people around us, where we heal our workplaces and our communities, where we heal the vast divides in our society. When we can do the inner work, we can do the outer work.
Oh, that is so amazing. And it's so true. I mean, you read your book and it's like, of course, you could see how this all falls together. It makes perfect sense.
And it doesn't happen another way. It's not like we can fake the system out and ignore the inner state and think the outer state is going to be all wonderful. The two go together, as you say, Marianne.
So I know in your book you talk about breath. Why is breath an important piece here?
Breath is so important because it really makes a link between conscious and unconscious mind. That is, if you think about it for a moment, or that we can consciously control our breath. If I asked you to hold your breath, you could do it. If I asked you to make your breath shorter or longer, you could do it. If I asked you to move your breath higher or lower in your body, you could do it. And yet, before I asked you to think about breath, you were clearly breathing. So it shows us how it's crossing a boundary between conscious and unconscious mind. It's connected to parts of our autonomic nervous system. It can be a deeper ambassador for change than our conscious mind alone. It can get in there and work things that we don't have conscious access to. So that is where breath can settle things down. It's also really been shown, again, by the heart math folks, that there are certain frequencies of breathing that allow coherence through our entire system. By coherence, I mean waves add up. I told you earlier, we use the example of waves on water. When they come together, something's going to happen. When waves in our body come together, the same thing occurs. They can either interfere, cancel out, or add up into very strong patterns. And there are certain frequencies where they add up. By getting our breath down to just 2 or 3 times a minute, we're hitting a frequency where we can get our head, our heart, and our hara, our lower abdomen, all working within the same frequencies. And that creates a kind of coherence that is yourself at its clearest note, your full self at full power. Breath can do that.
Wow. I loved how in your book you talked about how our body it basically is making music in many ways. So there's the music of the chakras. And I found that really fascinating.
There's some wonderful work that's been done with this with Anadea Judith and others who have looked at the kinds of frequencies that help different parts of the body resonate. And we use this a lot in Zen training because the vowel sounds resonate in the body's cavities. The these are resonating deep in the body and descend from the throat down into the lower abdomen, even to the root chakra. So by using different frequencies, we can kind of, again, use the vibration of sound to loosen up stuck points and get things opened up and tuned. And that physical technique is a part of, for example, Zen training, as well as other modalities that use sound frequencies to enable healing and reintegration.
It really does take a brilliant mind like yours to pull all of this together. Was there anything that surprised you when you were doing your research?
Well, I thought I understood resonance when I started writing the book, but the more I wrote, the more it unveiled its wonder to me. So I think what surprised me was just how big it is that, and in a way, how it invites us to live our most significant life, but also with the greatest ease, the greatest joy, the greatest resilience. In other words, there's a way to live where, Marianne, we're not fighting the current. We're not bumping up against the splinters of life. We're not a frantic I trying to make her difference. We are catching the rhythm of the dance, of the music that is playing through our own body. And then because of how it comes through us, out comes certain actions. Certain things inspire us that are your work to do or my work to do. If we follow the naturalness of that, nothing could be easier than ringing that true note, that clear note that we are. I think that's what surprised me, was the ease and resilience of it when you can really feel that rhythm that is available to guide your life. We often think about finding purpose as something to think about, something we find in our head. But what resonance has shown me is it's found in the body. And then the body lets the mind in on the secret.
Well, and it's great how that comes together for us personally. And I know it has such great impact for, our work, our communities worldwide. So how does resonance make a difference beyond the body?
Well, because we're always acting into a medium where every action is a chain reaction. I mean, even the sound of my voice is sending waves into the world that are going to interact with people in a different way. And it may trigger something in you or a listener here or a person there that they go, whoa, I want to do X, Y, Z as a result of that. So we're always creating a chain reaction. When something resonates with us, it means we are literally vibrating with it, which means it's taken into our body and it's causing change in there. Now, there may be resistance, or there may be, I can't act on this today, or it may be, this matters to me, or it may be life-changing. We don't know. We don't know what those outcomes will be, but we do know that we're always acting into a medium where every action is a chain reaction. And we can also be skillful about how to get energy to add up in our workplaces or our teams, or even in creating social change, to important tipping points by laying in processes where the actions of different people can add up, or laying in structures that help people's actions multiply rather than cancel out, or add up rather than divide. Those are things we can do as leaders or as team members in our work. And so at every level, from our relationships to our goals, to our teams, to large-scale social change, which are the different levels that we look at in the book Resonate, we're able to use the fact that our actions create chain reactions to start creating the change we want to be and see in the world.
So how do leaders use this in realizing goals and dreams?
One of the key ways to do that is to first listen. Listening is listen to life. Listening for what moves you. Listening is not passive. I used to think, communication, talking was the active side and listening was passive, but no, listening is where you're taking in energy. So if a leader can really listen for what are the unmet needs in my marketplace or in my community or on my team, what is the next thing that needs to happen? A really sensitive leader, just like a sensitive poet, can pick things out of the zeitgeist that are ready to happen. And then when the leader lets that energy change her or him, it turns into actions. It turns into, maybe I need to start getting this person involved. I have to give it this form. I need to engage these people. It starts to turn into something because it's created a chain reaction in that person. So it starts with listening, and then let that action or inspiration descend through you to give it form, to engage other people, to give it drive and determination. You might hear in this description, I'm really speaking to even these different qualities or patterns of the nervous system that allow us to turn ideas into action. These 4 patterns that we reference in the book: the driver, the organizer, the collaborator, the visionary. These patterns are tools a leader has access to turn inspiration into concrete actions. That's how we bring the future through ourselves into the present moment, because the present moment is where we live. And so when we exactly match the leader who matches that dream or that goal is right now. It can't be anywhere else. We're bringing it through ourselves.
Well, and it really gives leaders something to strive for as well, to be in that place where they resonate with those goals and dreams. And I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of times we get ideas and we might resonate with an idea. Ideas in some ways are a dime a dozen, but if something won't let you go, it's yours. That's what hit me with writing this book, because eventually, I'm sitting in this room going, I think this is really important, but I'm really busy. I don't have time to write a book, but it wouldn't let me go. And so then life starts opening up a little time here. A scheduled trip got canceled there, and suddenly I had a couple weeks to write, and I said, well, I'm going to give it a whirl. That's what happens. When we listen to life, we have an idea. Well, is it really mine or not? If it won't let us go, if it really keeps building or gnawing on us, then I have to say, let it change me. How will this change me? How will it change my priorities, my day, whatever it is, so that it can come to life, it can be realized? That's what leaders do. That's what they do at their best, to bring a future ready to happen right into the present.
So I understand you're the founder and CEO of the Institute for Zen Leadership. Why don't you share a little bit about that with us?
Thank you. Yes. It's where we bring the physical training of Zen, this way of changing resonance, together with real leadership skills and strategies and practices to help people be more resourced in how to lead just the way I've been talking about, and how they can change themselves, their relationships, their systems, whatever level at which they're working or care about. And we've been bringing leaders to and through these programs since 2012. This year, we're now in the COVID times, these are now programs online. So they're available to people anywhere in the world. And we're finding even in this virtual format, it's possible for people to really get resourced and build the kind of physical practices that help them lead in this way, which is leading as the whole picture. We say, the beauty of Zen is it takes us out of this dualistic world of self and other and expands us to feel into how we can use and resonate with universal energy, bringing it through our differentiated self to make our difference. That's what Zen leadership is.
Well, I just love your book. I felt that it was such a great resource, and it really dives into how to do this in a way that I don't think has ever been explained before. So I was so excited when I got my copy. My goodness, we could talk all day long, Jenny. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
Oh, thank you, Marianne. Two sources I'll give. First, at resonatethebook.com, they can connect with resources around the book and not only how to get it, but there's a whole set of companion videos that go with the exercises in the book. And I really like to point people there because it'll help them experience those practices that make them whole. And also zenleader.global. Zenleader.global is where these programs at the Institute for Zen Leadership are described, where people can have these immersion experiences in how to equip themselves as Zen leaders to lead for the whole picture. So zenleader.global and resonatethebook.com.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jenny. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Resonate, Zen and the Way of Making a Difference. Resonate's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, it's available on Kindle. You'll want to stay tuned for our next special guest. Professor and two-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee, Dr. Ervin Laszlo, is here to share with us his new book, Global Shift Now, A Call to Evolution. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 1, 2, 3 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with our next special guest, Dr. Ervin Laszlo, who's here to share with us his new book, Global Shift Now, A Call to Evolution. Now, Dr. Laszlo was twice nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. He's the editor of the international periodical World Futures, the Journal of General Evolution, and the Chancellor-designate of the newly formed Global Shift University. He's the founder and president of the international think tanks on the Club of Budapest, the Laszlo Institute of New Paradigm Research, the General Evolution Research Group, and he's the author of 83 books translated into 21 languages. So let's welcome to the show Dr. Ervin Laszlo.
Thank you. It's so nice to be with you. I think you've been before, and so it's very good to catch up again.
Oh my goodness, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. And I have to tell you, once I picked this book up, I could not put it down. I felt like it's a game changer for humanity.
Well, we are in a game-changing mode right now, Yes. The old game doesn't work anymore, so you have to find a new one. So I hope to find a better one. That's my ambition. That's my aspiration.
Well, it seems that everyone's looking for that path forward and what to do next. And before we go too far down the road here with this, I'd love for you to share with us what inspired you to write this book.
Well, that the time has come about things of change, world changing and shifting times, bifurcation times, chaos times that I've been talking about for 20 years or so. And we're already talking about that is going to come, that is bound to come, because we are not on a crisis path. And now it has come in a quite unusual, unexpected way. And the trigger was unexpected, but the crisis situation is something that one way or another was bound to come. So what inspired me is the sense that here we are, living now the conditions that I spoke about before. And now the question is to say what conclusions we can derive, what wisdom, so to speak, can we find in the theories, in the expectations that we had in the past to apply to the situation today, so that it doesn't become a degenerative situation, but becomes a stepping stone, hopefully, for a different world, and a different and perhaps hopefully a better world.
Well, in your book, you talk about that we are faced with an opportunity, and I'd love for you to share with our listeners what you mean by that, because I think a lot of people may look at this time and not really see opportunity there when I think there's a lot.
Well, one thing you have to keep in mind right away in the beginning, that the opportunity is to change, and that change has become necessary. Now, if everything would have been fine just the way it has been before this kind of a pandemic, then I think what's the opportunity? The opportunity is to go back and maintain the world the way it was. But that's not really an opportunity. That's a task. That's a necessity. But since the past has been we have been creating a crisis-prone world, then the opportunity is to change for something else, for something better. And the opportunity is there to change because the customs, the systems, the structures that have been dominating our world for the past decades and perhaps a century have been shaken up. Now, as we know, chaos and shake-ups is always the way toward forward. The way to progress is to shake loose from the old. So the opportunity now is to be able to create a world that we say how it should be, that we can create consciously, because the old systems are no longer so dominant. More and more people are waking up and they're asking, what can we do? They're realizing that something needs to be done. And that is the opportunity to shift, to create a better world. And it's a historic opportunity. It would be, I always say, a crime against humanity not to seize this opportunity.
Yeah, it seems that we are just being begged right now to make these shifts and changes. How do you see businesses changing as well?
Well, we must change in a way that we understand that our immediate goal, our highest goal and aspiration is not just us, we, or me, and our immediate surroundings and people around us. But our highest goal is to contribute to the system of life on Earth. That is a holistic perspective. And business has been originally meant in the beginning of the 20th century by Andrew Mellon and Carnegie and all the other, and Ford and all the captains of industry, has meant to be something for the common good, something that would help people in society. And it has become a very much of a self-generative enterprise, a self-centered. Profit comes first, and our profit comes first. And of course, people come second, and planet comes third. But now I've got to reverse that order. I think we have to see that the planet is the basis of the biosphere that's what I mean by planet, the system of life on the Earth. That is the system that we need to maintain in a flourishing state, because then something is possible for us. It's possible for us to maintain ourselves, to live, to flourish, to thrive in this world, instead of facing more and more climates, more and more crisis and chaos. So here we are, need to change. The opportunity is there to change. So look at crisis not only as danger, look at it as opportunity. Historically, that's where it has been. Historically, most of the big changes have occurred when some kind of a crisis has occurred. It doesn't need to be a violent one. It doesn't need to require human sacrifice, as it were. But it's a crisis that we must perceive as something that is untenable, not something that we want to continue, something that we want to change. Then the question arises, change what way? Change how? And to what purpose? And then we ask that question and we are ready to change, then I think we can change. Because the big lesson, I think, we learned from systems theory, from holistic philosophy, from quantum science, is that we can indeed have an influence on the world, because we can be the agents of change. And the world will be something that will follow us if we change consciously and with determination. It's a big lesson, but it's a very positive lesson. And it's a great responsibility to live in such a time. It's an exciting time. It's a wonderful time in the sense that it could be, this whole crisis could be a blessing in disguise. But it's up to us what we do with it. Let's open our eyes and look at the past, look at the present, and ask ourselves, are we now free to move forward to a better world?
Yes, I mean, we've been operating in this paradigm that just doesn't work. It doesn't work for the planet, doesn't work for the inhabitants on the planet, businesses. It just seems that everything on every component is just crumbling. And we're looking at this going, gosh, we need to make some dramatic changes now. And I think there are some people who, with your book are looking at going, gosh, we can start making these changes. There's a light at the end of the tunnel with this.
There is. It's a very big light, yes. Unfortunately, the tunnel is dark, and it's many people mistake it for a dead end, and it isn't, actually. So let's use this opportunity. It's a very simple principle that I try to present here. It's an old principle at the same time, because the religions, tradition, spirituality, these great traditional wisdom systems have always embraced this, but we have forgotten it. And that is that what is good for the whole is also good for the part. Whereas the reverse that we have been operating on is not necessarily the case. What is good for the part, at least in the short term, is not necessarily good for the whole, because it can take apart the whole. It can create conflict in the whole. It's just me come first, my country, my business, my tribe, or whatever, and then we disregard the rest and create a crisis of conflicts. And so that has to reverse. We have to say, planet comes first, and then comes the people, of course, that who have to be taken care of, have to learn to live and to flourish in this world. And only then comes the idea of profit for business. Profit is a means, not an end, a means to create a more sustainable world around us. And I think many managers are realizing this and are beginning to act like this. They couldn't do so because we were outcompeted in a moment, so to speak, if they try to not compete fully by putting themselves and their business first. But now the situation is changing. I think everybody is in a position where we ask ourselves, how do we change? And any leader in this change, a business leader, a political leader, a cultural leader, a social leader, a young person, or is a leading personality, a leading voice, can have a multiplying effect, can have an effect which simply nucleates and blows up. So the butterfly effect, a little butterfly can create a hurricane because it amplifies that system of change, that winds of change. And so this is our chance, and it's an exciting time to live, and it's not difficult to grasp. Don't put always just yourself first and forget the rest. Put ourselves together first and have togetherness and have the oneness that's before. That's what young people are talking about. Have the love that young people are talking about. That comes as a major element of the world. Used to be a utopia, used to be an idealistic aspiration. Now it becomes a necessity, and it also becomes a possibility. That's the chance. That's what we cannot miss anymore.
Yeah, it seems that the younger generation now is so geared for what they can do as far as making changes for the planet, that they're all about this. And we have a responsibility to make sure that we give them a planet that is at least in decent shape.
Exactly. This is why I say I have a chapter that says looking back, seeing what kind of a world we had. And it's not a question of falling back into that. The way is forward, has to go forward, has to build something different and more sustainable, more conscious in a way. And so the world that we had before was good for a very small minority who reaped the benefits, who had the power and the wealth to operate in that world. But it was a very small minority, and it's tended to operate at the expense of the great majority, of the vast majority of people. So that has to reverse. Now people themselves have to rise up, have to become conscious and pull together and create the change that enables all people to live. We have the resources, we have the technology, we have all the means available. What we need is the will. The so-called famous political will that we always talked about is missing. Now the will is forced on us. The will is necessary now. So I'm optimistic in that regard. There is a chance up to us to take that chance. And it seems to me that because young people are always asking, more and more asking, as you say, what can we do? How can we build a more sustainable world, a better world for all people? Because of that inquiry is going on, there is an openness. So I always say the first thing to do, when it's asked, what shall we do? The first thing you do is open your eyes. Open your eyes to see what you had, how it is, why you cannot sustain what you had, why it's a good thing among several things that we cannot sustain. Why it's a good thing? Because it will just create worse and worse conditions. The accumulation of power and wealth and money, all that is created a dead-end street. Good for a smaller and smaller minority, and more desperate and dead-end for the great majority. So as long as we open our eyes and see the world that was behind, that we left behind, the world that is being shaken up now, if we can see that, then we find, yes, we can join together and create a world which operates as a whole, where every part is interacting with every other part, and where every element of that, every 7.5 billion cells of this world can act in such a way as to maintain the whole world, and not only maintain themselves and to heck with the rest.
Yes, I mean, even at the cellular level, we're so connected. You look at that, how our cells connect with each other and how we connect with each other on this planet and with our environment. I think your book really helps people to look at things in a different way, maybe than they've ever looked at before.
Well, this is our times. Raise the question, And I like to just say things in my publications, say things that where people say, yes, I knew that. I'm not saying anything radically new. I'm saying that people instinctively knew, but young people always have known. Young people know from the very beginning of their awareness and consciousness, know that we belong together, that we are forming as something which is larger than each of us separately. And spiritual traditions, the religions, when insofar as not dogmatic, but go into the deeper spiritual experience level, they have always championed this, the wisdom traditions. Yes, that we are truly a part of a larger whole. That is, I think, the recognition that we need to ask ourselves, then what can I do as a conscious, purposeful part of that larger whole? The answers will come, whether you are in business, in education, in science or culture, whatever aspect of society, in social media, the answers will come once you sort of set yourself open, not look at your immediate interests independently of the rest. And recognize, let me add this, recognize what Einstein has been telling us. Separations or separateness in this world is an illusion. It's prompted only by a perception of seeing things as though there will be one thing here and another thing over there. Separateness is an illusion. The new sciences, relativity theory, but even more so quantum sciences tell us there is no separation. All things are connected instantly and deeply. So that whatever happens to one thing also happens to other things. That is a new insight. It's an old insight, but it's time to learn it now.
Well, Ervin, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
And it was great to be able to chat about these things. I think it become more and more vital to do so. And then the media can raise these questions and can give an opportunity to bring up possible ways of tackling these issues, these problems. I think that's a tremendous service because communication, consciousness, these are the key elements for creating a better world.
Well, thank you, Dr. Laszlo. It has been such an honor to have you here and to talk about your new book, Global Shift Now, A Call to Evolution. If you'd like to learn more about this book and also all the other great books that Dr. Laszlo has, you can visit his website at laszloinstitute.com for more information. Global Shift Now is available on Amazon and Kindle for download. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.